Welcome. Welcome to Princeton. It's with great pleasure that I'm here this afternoon to welcome you to the start of what I expect will be 2.5 days of enormously stimulating and challenging interventions in, on, through Synesthesia of Law. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom Levine. I'm a professor in the German department where I teach media and cultural theory. My esteemed colleague in the English department, Professor Eduardo Cadava, and I have the great pleasure of being the faculty sponsors of what quite certainly is the most ambitious international and interdisciplinary conference ever organized by graduate students here at Princeton University. For this event, indeed, this event is the result of the extraordinary efforts of two remarkable young scholars, Daniela Gandorfer, a graduate student in Princeton's German department, and NOFAR SHEFFI, a graduate student in the law school at Sciences Po in Paris. You will hear from both in just a moment, so for now let me just say this. Their remarkable and thoroughly professional collaboration across disciplines, across continents, across nationalities, strikes me as exemplary in many ways, not least as a performative realization of the organizing topos of this gathering, synesthesia, syn with, together, and esthesia of the order of sensation, that we will see explored through 8 different panels of the next days. Indeed, as I was thinking about this upcoming conference during this week, I was struck by the various, what one might call, medial performances that we have all witnessed of the synesthesial, in the sense of a rendering phenomenal, a stasis of the order of the sensory, by bringing together, syn. Take what may seem at first glance as an ultimately silly example, the playful compilations of Donald Trump's incessant sniffing during the first presidential debate on Monday. While rendering plausible by means of montage Howard Dean's suggestion that the Republican candidate might well have taken some sort of nasal stimulant, what's striking about these videos, and I imagine many of you have seen them, is not only the media archival labor that they represent, but also the remarkably short lag time between the event, Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the subsequent argument by means of analytic juxtaposition. An aesthesis, a rendering phenomenal that operates by means of a logic, by means of a labor of the syn, of the putting together of these little. And indeed, if you look, you can find various versions of these compilations, including one accompanied by Eric Clapton's Cocaine as a counterpoint to the snifferie, and another that has taken the next step and has remixed the sniffs according to aesthetic criteria, producing a rhythmical, lyrical, absurdist sniff symphony, an aesthetics of syn, a synesthesial performance. A much more disturbing example, and a media political one that addresses the question of the juridical in an even more immediate and striking fashion, is the work of juxtaposition, of putting together, of rendering legible by contiguity, the synesthesis of the 4 video streams that captured the terrible shooting in Charlotte, North Carolina on September 20th of Keith Lamont Young. Following the deeply disturbing phone video of the event filmed by his wife, Rekeya Scott, and the eventual release of the 2 police video streams, a body camera video and a dashboard camera video, yet another, second cell phone video of the event was also discovered. Using both time codes and the audio track from the Rekeya Scott video, the New York Times was then able to put together, to synchronize, all 4 of these videos, presented next to each other in 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, that invoke the classic surveillance monitor dispositif, in a manner that allows one, through this syn, through this bringing together of divergent aspects on the tragic event, through this polyperspectival aesthesis, through this rendering phenomenal aesthesis of the encounter, to begin to try to make sense of this event, a synesthesis with all too obvious juridical ramifications. As these 2 examples reveal, what is at stake in this conference is anything but merely academic. What we are confronting here are issues of compelling urgency. But a gathering of such importance could only have come to pass thanks to yet another manifestation of syn, That, of course, being the extraordinary willingness on the part of a large number of departments and programs, not only here at Princeton, where the list of sponsors is truly impressive, but also at Sciences Po Paris, Columbia University, and the French Embassy, to work together soon to help make this event a phenomenal reality, a stasis. And so in closing, I'd like to ask for your patience and your attention as I read the list and honor roll of sorts of remarkably generous supporters of this gathering. On behalf of everyone involved in the Synesthesia of Law conference, our heartfelt thanks goes to Princeton Center for Human Values, the Princeton University Sciences Po Collaborative Research Grants Program, the Department of German, the Council for the Humanities, the Lewis Center for the Arts, the Graduate School, the Columbia University Center for Contemporary Critical Thought, Princeton's Department of French and Italian, the Department of English, the program in Latin American Studies, the program in Gender and Sexuality Studies, the program in Law and Public Affairs, the interdisciplinary doctoral program in the Humanities, the Center for Digital Humanities, the Cultural Services of the French Embassy in the United States, Princeton's Department of Comparative Literature, the Department of Art and Archaeology, and the Department of Anthropology. Besides the incredible generosity of these institutional sponsors, and at the risk of testing your patience by adding just a few more acknowledgments to this already extensive soon list, I would also like to single out for particular thanks Professor Peter Brooks, the Andrew Mellon Foundation Scholar in Comparative Literature in the University Center for Human Values, Professor Nicholas Wegmann, the chair of the German department, Professor Christoph Jamin, the dean of the Sciences Po Law School, Pat Heslin and Emily Bart from the German department, who were an indispensable help in the organizational minutiae of the event, Claire Hu and Nassau Hall, Miguel Ripoll, the designer of the striking poster and website, and of course the various moderators from Princeton University, Columbia University, Indiana University, and Sciences Po Paris. Thanks for your attention. Welcome to Princeton, and now, without any further ado, I give you the driving duo, the organizational force, the inspiration behind this event, Daniela Gandorfer and NOFAR SHEFFI. Thank you.
Hi, my name is NOFAR SHEFFI, and on behalf of Daniela Gandorfer and I would like to welcome you all to the Synesthesia of Law conference. Before we hand over the moderation to Eduardo Cadava, who will introduce our first panel, we would like to say a few words about the project and about synesthesia, the concept around which this conference is organized, a concept that suggests an alternative mode of not only perceiving and making sense, but also sharing and being linked. Daniela and I have arrived at this moment from very different places and backgrounds. We received different education, both formal and informal. We know different things and the same things differently. We even move, not march, to different tunes and different beats. Yet we are both here, standing together, before you and before the law. Somehow, in a magnificent turn of events, our lives and paths intersected. We connected. What brought us together, what we share, is a feeling, a sense, not an ideal, not a reason, not a claim. It is in a synesthetic moment of interrelation that our beautiful friendship began, and with it, this collaboration, this joint or shared project. In what sense is this project shared? In what sense is anything shared? We live in a unique moment of sharing, in a world in which everything is increasingly connected. We are even taught to experience, see, and hear ourselves as living in this age of sharing. But what is it that we share and how? Our opinions and joys via Facebook and Twitter, our filtered visions via Instagram, our childishness and playfulness via Snapchat, our romantic lives via Tinder, hot gossip via WhatsApp, our cars via Uber. What Daniela and I share, we feel, is something else completely. And it is precisely that feeling or sense of sharing. It is not, in other words, what we share, but the sense that we do share that brings us together.
NOFAR and I understand ourselves as part of a generation. Generation understood as what has been generated and what constantly also generates. A new generation, perhaps a generation after, and after that adamantly resists becoming yet another canonical post, that enthusiastically celebrates the yet to come without arresting it into a ready-made grid. That we belong, or more precisely, that we were taught to belong to this blurry non-place of the after, but not post, not yet confident and convinced enough to pronounce it before, we were told all along our academic paths. But it was in fact a feeling, a form of sensing and sharing that brought us together and at the same time always separates us, distances us, erects walls with the same breathtaking speed and intensity that tears them down immediately after. We don't seek agreement. No, we don't. We don't strive for unity, consensus, or harmony. We are not offering answers, let alone solutions. We are fascinated by movement, interlinking, constant gathering and disseminating. We are intrigued by potentiality, reaching out towards the unknown, instead of cordoning off spaces, drawing distinctions and borders. And involuntarily, we are connected with and linked to each other in moments and spaces of friendship and creativity, but also precarity, disagreement, and utter incommensurability. We don't conceive of our academic and political work as responsibility, but as an imperative to sense, an imperative to act, and an imperative to learn how to read and perceive the present as urgent, in danger of becoming yet unrecognized past, of becoming an unrecognized past or precipitated future. Indeed, we, those who were made to belong to this generation of scholars, although doomed to reside in this gray zone of act and thought, at the same time also share this moment of precarity, this feeling of urgency, and inhabit the shared space of the temporal and spatial unknown, knowing only the importance of the ties that connect us, create interrelations and networks of thought we ourselves have neither chosen nor anticipated. There is something at stake, and it is nothing less than an involuntarily academic we, linked by rather dreadful events and developments, but guided by the sense of the necessity of sharing, that needs to act, resist, and speak out, and, most importantly, forgo the adamant illusion of becoming one, speaking as one, thinking as one movement, one school of thought, one method, one discipline, one history, one form. We, as part of this generation of disagreement and rootlessness, can neither afford to seek agreement and to form a consistent community, nor to fight petty fights over disciplines and terms, for it is precisely the ubiquitous, hovering political and economic thread of our time that ties us together and requires us to recognize our intellectual interdependence, our need for alliances in order to follow the imperative to respond loudly, clearly, and strongly, in every sense and with all senses, to these imminent threats. It is precisely the shared sensing, a sheer cacophony of contradicting voices, the involuntariness of relation and ties, the intellectual we, that does not strive to consume everyone and everything alike, that leads us to synesthesia. Synesthesia is involuntary, spontaneous, and inventive. It stands for multiplicity of sensual occurrences, mixability of senses, simultaneity of perceptions, and translatability of one perception into another different perception. Synesthesia creates the anti-source, the a-foundational foundation, a testimony of the multiple in its connectedness. Synesthesia of law, as we understand it, calls our attention to the necessity of learning how to perceive and sense the law instead of reading it in its institutionalized, archived, and quoted form. In fact, The talks during the next 3 days will show that law has no form, but yet an infinite number of formations.
So, here we are, incredibly fortunate to finally welcome our distinguished speakers, scholars from various fields, artists and activists, brilliant moderators and cherished guests, those physically present in this room, as well as those digitally present by following the live stream. We are delighted, we are honored, we are full of hope. To have here our sources of inspiration and aspirations, who by offering different ways of thinking the law, sensing the legal, perceiving the challenges of our shared times, have greatly influenced not only us in our intellectual development, but also their disciplines and their fields. In the course of the next 3 days, our speakers will discuss police violence, global justice, the sounds, sights, and smells of law, affect, the atmosphere of law, sensible legal subjects and objects, the relation between body and law, the pain inflicted by and onto bodies, black bodies, queer bodies, tortured and imprisoned bodies. We also want to use this moment to express our deep gratitude for those who supported us and made this conference possible. Princeton University and Sciences Po Law School, the many Princeton departments and programs Tom has already mentioned, the Columbia Center for Contemporary Critical Thought, as well as the Cultural Service of the French Embassy in the US. Special thanks also to the Princeton German Department, and especially to Patricia Hessling and Emily Barth, who both devoted a great deal of their time to make this project possible. Above all, it is important to us to personally, once again, and certainly not for the last time, thank Thomas Levin, Tom, Eduardo Cadava, and Michael Gzifaras. To say that Thomas, Eduardo, and Michael provided us with around-the-clock advice and support from all around the world would not be an exaggeration. This past year has been a whirlwind. The organization of this event has managed to transcend time and space. Tom, Eduardo, and Michael patiently read our draft proposals, always uber urgent emails and WhatsApp messages, while on leave in Rio de Janeiro, at 2 o'clock in the morning while in a conference in South Africa, and even, and this is not a joke, after a 16-hour road trip in a Chavantes village in the Brazilian Amazon. As grateful as we are for all the advice they provided, we are thankful especially for all the occasion when none of them provided us with it. When we were given space to pursue our own visions and ideas, we were not only set free, but even encouraged to brazenly ignore their advice. And for anyone who knows us, we did it. As many of our colleagues probably know, this is not a given for graduate students in academia, a highly hierarchical system. We thus want to thank Thomas, Michael, and Eduardo for their commitment, time, patience, and most importantly, for their friendship and their confidence and trust in us and our project. Many thanks to all of you and many more, to friends and strangers, for helping us to think, organize, and realize this event. And many thanks to all of you for being here and sharing your time, thoughts, and hopes with us and each other. Thank you.